literally, the reason you see all these underfoots roaming, you'll see them throughout our videos, because you can't help but bump into them as we roam around. I grew up on a horse farm in Virginia and moved to Boston for grad school and became a high school English teacher. Until 10 years into that work, I was invited to become the principal of a new charter high school. Anybody who works with me knows that media and technology are not my friends. I use them because I have to, but my standard joke is that I cannot wait to get to the point in my life where I can climb a tree and eat mangoes. It's not my friend. So, because it was a media and technology high school, I turned the job down. And education to that point had been my trajectory. I imagined that I would impact social change through the classroom, and then through becoming a principal and becoming a school superintendent, etc. However, that was not to be. I turned down the job, and I thought, oh my goodness gracious, what do I want to do with the next 30 years of my life, 30 or more professional years? And what occurred to me over some months was about a desire to combine my love for teaching and learning with my love for animals, having grown up on a farm. And so Catskill Animal Sanctuary was born from a desire to marry those two things. One day, this guy arrived. In my first book, Where the Blind Horse Sings, the first sentence of the first chapter about him was that Rambo arrived full of testosterone and rage. Look at the size of those horns. He had been confined by a notorious hoarder with decades of history in and out of the courts, lots of fines, but she continued to do what hoarders do. She would move, she would change locations and continue to hoard animals. She surely caused the death of hundreds of animals over the decades. Well, they were seized in a joint effort with New York State Humane Association and the local SPCA. 17 animals, including Rambo, had been locked in a 12 by 12 stall. One of them was a decomposing cow. Rambo, with those horns, was just a little bit claustrophobic, so that when, understandably, because he'd been confined. So whenever we would try to put him in a stall, he would put that head down and boom! Usually on tour days, I have a little person to help me demonstrate this. Boom, boom, against that door, until quite literally he started to be able to knock the 2x6s out and come about his merry way. So we had an idea, but for that part of the story, you gotta come with me. This is our welcome hut, which is not open today, very sadly. We will open as soon as we can, as soon as it is safe for us all to be together again. But for now, we're doing what we can as our sanctuaries around the country to welcome you and to help you experience these animal friends. So, we decided to have Rambo be our first free-range animal. We have since named all of these guys our underfoot family for reasons that you either know or will come to understand as you check in with us virtually. I've got to be a little bit quieter because I believe we still have a vet in here. Oh, no, she's gone. We had a Mare Callie, an old horse who had a tooth pulled, and the vet was here packing that cavity. This was Rambo's stall. Apparently, someone was painting when Rambo decided to come out. And this was the repair that we had to do to make sure these 2x6s, thick, boards would stay intact when Rambo just went boom. So we decided, as an experiment, to have Rambo be our first underfooter, our first and only animal, in fact, who is allowed, animal that is subject to predation, that is. Be our only animal who is allowed to be free 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And for his 12 years with us, that was his life. So, hello, Miss Nina. We had a big pile of straw here, and then 75 feet down the aisle, we had another pile of straw, and Rambo was free to come and go wherever he wanted. I used to live 50 feet behind the barn in what is now our, we call it the Brown office, our program office. And I came down to check the animals one night. I'm smiling, you guys, because little tiny Nina, who was an Easter rescue last year, is getting a wonderful massage from Lauren. And oh, she's in heaven. Oh, does that feel good? So I came down to the barn one night to check on the animals. And I don't know if you can tell, but this is a 20-stall barn. 10 stalls on the right, a 16-foot aisle, 10 stalls on the left. Well, I went from stall to stall to stall. Rambo was down in his far bed, hanging out. I went from stall to stall to stall, and everybody seemed just fine. Well, guess what? I forgot. My mind didn't register that in stall number 6 down there on the right, 2 turkeys lived, one of whom was blind. And we had forgotten to bring them in. So we had screwed up twice, we humans. First, the animal care team must have had a miscommunication and the animals didn't come in. By the way, it was November and it was a stormy night. And secondly, the backup person, the person who's supposed to check behind them, didn't even notice that the turkeys were not in their stall. So I circled around. Hello, Christopher. Lots of underfoots in here today, you guys. I circled around. I came back to the end of the barn, and I said, "Good night, animals." Rambo got up very, very deliberately from his bed, walked 75 or 80 feet, looked up at me, and the first time I heard his voice was this moment, and he said, "Bah." So I said, because he might as well have said these words, I said, "Show me what's wrong." That animal, who had never known a moment's kindness until he came here, who had been confined to a stall, who was filthy and violent for his first months here, walked down the aisle, walked into the empty turkey stall, turned around, looked at me, and said, "Bah." Hello, Shirley. Hey, Shirley. In that moment, which is a moment that changed my life, he showed me the following. He figured out a way. He knew the animals were out there. He knew they shouldn't be, obviously. He figured out a way to tell a human being. He knew that the human being would help, otherwise why make the effort? And that signaled to me that he understands what this place is. Above and beyond all of that, extraordinary enough on its own, hi Christopher, Rambo had empathy for 2 birds, 2 animals of a different species that were having a pretty miserable night. What old man? Hey, old man. I love you. I love you. I love you. And that moment changed my life. That moment, as I write in Where the Blind Horse Sings, you know, a lot of us are blessed to have good teachers intermittently throughout our days in school and college, however long we go. I had plenty. I never remember having a teacher who helped me understand that everything I thought about a topic was kind of wrong, was kind of through my own personal lens. That is what he did in that moment, and he is quite literally the reason we have these underfoots, because had he not been free, he never would have been able to potentially save those animals' lives, because up in the hills to our east, we've got, are we having technical issues? Where's the camera? Look at the little button. Okay, you guys, hello, I will try to look at the camera. Up in the hills we had coyotes, so potentially someone's dinner, but at the very least they would have spent an extraordinarily miserable night. So Rambo taught me in that moment of the importance of allowing them an environment where they can communicate freely. What I understood after he died, and I wish I had consciously known it when he was alive, Rambo was merely doing what rams do in nature. Now, mind you, he was neutered, but he was well into adulthood. He was probably 5 years old when we got him and neutered him. So he had the protective nature that rams do. They want to protect the flock. We were all his flock. We were all his flock. And he spent all his years with us doing extraordinary things to look after the humans, the birds, the sheep, the cows. Come with me for another story. Should we walk this way? Yes, we'll walk this way. You guys, this is our main barn. It is the only barn that was standing when we bought a pretty ramshackle property. We have upgraded plumbing and
Don't walk into Christopher.
And I'm going to bump into a sheep.
Okay, buddy.
Let's take a peek at Rambo's son. This is very, very old, blind, fully blind by now, probably almost, he is 17 years old. He is the oldest sheep, the black sheep we've ever had. Christopher, his very dear friend, the white sheep, was born here in the wee hours of Christmas Day. I believe 14 years ago, he and his mom had been running through the Bronx not he and his mom, sorry, because his mom was pregnant. His mom was running through the Bronx having been chased by a pack of dogs. And we're just delighted to have him here. His mom died a couple years ago and he's in his final years, but enjoying the simplicity of old age that can be very peaceful at a sanctuary. Is this Michael? Mikey? Hello. Well, this is little love on two legs. This girl, Michael, rescued from just outside a turkey farm. She was wandering around in the street and has been here for a good few years, so probably not going to be with us for lots and lots and lots of more years. They have such industry-induced challenges because of the weight, the pressure that the weight puts on their joints, on their hearts, on their circulatory system, on their respiratory system. All right, so just holler, Lauren, if I'm going to bump into any more underfoots.
I will, and we do have some questions from people too.
Oh gosh, okay.
When we're walking,
Go
if you
ahead.
want. Okay, well, one question that we got was, what was the first animal who was rescued here?
What timing? The first animal was this guy. His name was Dino. He was a tiny pony. He was about 36 inches, 9 hands, or 36 inches at the shoulder. He was the victim of an arson. A 15-year-old boy walked into the Bergen Beach stables. You can probably still Google this. I can't swear to it, but I remember finding articles online way back when. Went into the Bergen Beach stables, lit the hayloft on fire. 23 horses died. He was the sole survivor, perhaps because he was little and low to the ground and the smoke was rising, perhaps because he was brave and wanted his life, because he kicked and kicked and kicked and kicked. And there was a very breathtaking photo of a firefighter taking off his oxygen mask and giving it to little Dino, who was the only one of 23 to live. He came here, he had lung damage, he had scar tissue in his esophagus, he had a little arthritic limp, but that little guy kept up with the big guys, and we were crushed when we lost him 7 years after taking him in. And talk about beloved animals. We set up a little altar in his stall because it looked a little bit like a miniature version of London after Diana's death. Quite literally, probably several hundred bouquets of flowers and little gifts for little Dino. Any other questions?
Well, we did have someone asking if Bartleby is up to trouble as well.
Oh, good Lord, yes. When we were attempting to set up for Caden's 11 o'clock tour, Bartleby came within, it was just Caden's reaction that prevented a disaster, because he was having a little bit too much fun with the equipment. In fact, our 3 little pesky goats, Alice, Bartleby, and Violet, were all up to no good at the beginning of the tour. So I don't know where he is now. Caden and I were way out. This barn, just to orient you guys, the main barn is sort of in the center of the property, the center north to south and the center east to west. So the property goes probably, I don't know, 1,200 feet that way, and equal distance that way. We are exactly, with the acquisition of our latest property, exactly 150 acres, but a lot of it is wooded. We're gonna go up this way. A great deal of it is wooded. We probably have 80 acres of pasture land, 50 or 60 here, and then just through the woods, we've got 30 additional acres. We built this property as you helped us. We built it one road at a time, one pasture at a time, one barn at a time, and now we've got a whole mess of big old barns, 9 big barns, 6 kind of medium barns, lots of smaller shelters for animals, and I hope I can do this without falling on my face. So we call this little square of grass the mound. Some of us call it the grassy knoll. But I was driving out one day very early to a conference, I believe, and right where we were introducing you to Rambo, inside that area, it's been a very multi-purpose space. We've used it to store hay, we've used it as classroom space, we've used it most recently to do cooking demos. Well, back in the early days, we used it for emergency, sort of quarantine space for emergency rescue. And in one of our larger rescues, we took in 3 llamas. We don't accept llamas, but the llama rescue couldn't take the animals right away. So we agreed to take them for a few days until they could pick them up. I was going out one day and something told me to check the llamas, and those big doors were down. They're probably 12 feet tall. Again, 2x6s, big, heavy doors. The llamas had knocked them down. And the llamas, no, they weren't on this grassy knoll. The llamas were probably 1,500 feet that way, well off of our property. I was by myself. Nobody was going to get here until 7 o'clock, and the llamas were going further in toward town. So I chose to go back and get my dog Murphy, who had a very important job here as the director of canine pursuits, because Murphy knew lots of language. We had started talking from the time he was a very, very young dog. So I knew that if I said, Murphy, I need your help, he would figure out a way to help me attempt to get these llamas at least coming back down Equine Alley and in the general vicinity of the barn and not heading into Kingston. So I went back and got Murphy. I got over this fence and we sprinted over the top of this fence, over the top of this pasture, I was thinking I would try to circle behind the llamas and just spook them to come back to the barn. I was running, and honestly, I heard, and I believe I felt, but I heard the ground. I heard, and it was Rambo. And Rambo, when sheep's fastest gait is not a gallop, it's a boing. Like you've seen in cartoons, they really do boing, boing, boing. And when they're terrified or when they're intent on something, they boing. So here came this animal boinging. Why? Because what was he here to do? He was here to serve his flock. And running, they're animals that are predated, if that's the word. Predated. They are hunted animals. So to Rambo, running means trouble. Something is in trouble. My leader is in trouble, or mom, or that lady, or the one with the loud laugh, whatever his name was for me. So here we go, the dog, the sheep, and the woman, and we get behind the three llamas. And as I'm sitting there thinking, what the heck do we do now? Rambo and Murphy went to work as if they were trained herding animals. I have never seen anything like it, but as Murphy nipped at a heel and got the animals to run in one direction, Rambo would put those horns down, that head with those horns, and say, no, you don't. And within 5 minutes, those animals were marching down Equine Alley. So Rambo not only deserved 4 or 5 chapters in Where the Blind Horse Sings, he caused me to realize, to give words to something I knew intuitively, which is what you hear us say. You see it in our social media, you see it in our writing and in our tours, in the ways that truly matter. We are all the same. What do we mean by that? We all want our lives. We are all remarkably, sometimes maddeningly individual. Just look at Bartleby. We all feel every emotion that humans do. And lastly, pain and suffering and terror and fear. Feel no differently to a cow than they do to a kid. Come on.
And we do have another question, by the way.
Another question?
Yes, we love questions, so keep putting them in the comments there. Hayden wants to know, what's the oldest animal you have right now? I assume he means not the humans.
The oldest animal, yes, would be me. The oldest animal is Buddy. Buddy is, we're going to try to meet Buddy. Hang on 1 second, let's let the plane fly over. Buddy is a 34-year-old blind Appaloosa gelding. That's a horse. He's been struggling lately. We'll talk about that in a minute. In fact, you know what? We'll go down there now. Whoops, let me tie my shoe.
Oh, very important. Always make sure your shoes are tied.
So I'm going to leave it to Lauren to tell me when I need to stop. We will only be able to see Buddy, unfortunately, from a distance, but his story is an important one. So I'll walk until you tell me to stop. Buddy came here as a 20-year-old newly blind horse. He was not abused. Most of these animals come from unspeakable environments, particularly if they were food animals who were just lucky enough to escape that fate. Buddy's human had loved him, but as he had become blind, which is very common in that breed, the Appaloosa breed, it's called uveitis or moon blindness, they were unsure of how to adapt to keep him safe. So when he came here, he was loaded with anxiety, loaded with cuts and scratches. He had been in an irregular pasture, and as our third blind horse at that point, we had become pretty expert in the things you need to do to help a blind animal of any sort adapt to this new condition. So Buddy, I believe Buddy had PTSD. I don't think there's a diagnosis for horses that's called PTSD, but when he came in March of 2006, and there was snow on the ground, and I was walking him again up in these beautiful hills. We have miles and miles and miles of walking paths back there. I was walking him in the hills, trying to build his confidence, trying to build a relationship with him, when in an instant he went straight up in the air. And you can't let go of a blind horse that's frightened, because that is probably going to be death to the blind horse, and it certainly would have been then, because we were in the woods with a very steep drop off. Anyway, it was just, let me see if I can call him. Bud! Hey, Bud! Bud! Hi, buddy! Hi, Al! What you doing? So, Buddy has his head down, if you can see him. We still okay on audio?
We seem to be fine still, yeah.
Wow. Okay, we'll keep going. Buddy, I circled him back. It was the hardest physical thing I'd ever done, just to keep circling him and keep him from falling on me. And I was in chiropractic care for weeks, but we got back, and I remember calling his human and having a conversation about what had happened, and saying that I had no idea. It was completely unprompted. He was walking fine, and then he was up in the air, terrified. And she said, "Did I tell you he'd been hit by a car?" Well, she hadn't told us he'd been hit by a car. And it turns out that any unfamiliar, I love you, Bud. I love you, Bud. I love you, Elle. See you later, boo. That any unfamiliar sound was terrifying to him. And so this is nothing more than a hunch, but what we guess is that he'd gotten outside as a blind horse. He'd gotten outside his pasture, somehow broken through the fence, and then he probably heard the screech of brakes, and then suddenly he was on top of a car. so that any unidentified sound sent him into a tailspin. It took a year of work with him, leaving him in the barn where it was quiet during the day, and bringing him outside at night. And every time he heard something, even the wind, we'd take a long, it's called lunge line, a 50-foot long rope, and just slowly encourage him to come to us and try to rewire that part of his brain that panicked at sound. Well, that was 13 years ago, and we are delighted that he, our oldest animal at 34, is still with us. He's a goof. He's an in-your-face, goofy, mouthy boy. He's a little bit of a handful. Noise still can stress him, but he doesn't panic like he used to. Now, 34 is an extremely old horse. That's the equivalent of a 100-year-old human. Buddy is starting to struggle. We have gotten very, very good at geriatric care for turkeys, for chickens, for pigs, for cows, for horses. But in the end, despite all that we're providing, whether it's massage and acupuncture or turmeric or NSAIDs and anti-inflammatories or what have you. He also has Cushing's. At some point, we all have the final ethical obligation to say this animal's quality of life is gone. And then we have to gather ourselves and have our last act of love be to surround them with love and let them go. Now, fortunately, Buddy's not there yet. We probably need to change up. He's losing interest in his grain, so we probably want to change that up a little bit. And we're hoping he has a little bit more quality time with us, because he sure is a beloved member of our family. Ginger right here, they are both enjoying a mid-afternoon nap. You met Amelia earlier with Caden, I hope. Pigs are, I call them maddeningly bright. There have been times when a pig has made me feel pretty stupid. As remarkably individual as every single pig on this property, the things that define all pigs are, number one, extraordinary intelligence. Number two, extraordinary, frightening, really, strength. They could drag you around as if you were this. Willfulness and obsession with food. They want what they want, when they want it, and typically what they want is food. So you take on a lot as a sanctuary when you take on farm pigs that can grow up to 1,000 pounds. Keep in mind that all these industries profit from this formula of rapid growth in order to minimize their costs, rapid growth and confinement in order to minimize their costs. So you take these big, food-driven, willful, smart, strong animals, and you've got a lot on your hands. So they are remarkable in their ability to show emotions. You can actually watch them working out problems. They get very still, and you can almost see that mind working. We've had lots of pretty impressive kitchen break-ins by the pigs. So you take that level of intelligence and that level of will, and here is what we do to them because we want bacon and pork chops. If we've got parents of young kids, I'm not going to get gory. Just going to talk about this in a way that I think most ages could hear it. You can make your own choice for the very, very little ones. These are regulation gestation crates. They are where we put pigs when they are pregnant, and we talked about their intelligence. You saw how Lucy and Amelia instantly responded to their names. They are ranked by people who do such things. I think these rankings are very human-centric, very speciesist, very narrow, but nonetheless, in those rankings, pigs are ranked as number 4 on the list of intelligence. We put them in here. As you can see, this is barely bigger than a pig's body. And what do they have for a floor? Not soft straw. They have slats as floors so that manure and urine can fall into the vast pits below them, while above they're breathing in that ammonia from that stench, from that urine, from that feces. We have horrifying images that I'm not going to show of animals trapped in these lives. What does it do to a mind like that? We all want to be free. So as we close our tour number 2 on our virtual sanctuary day, first of all, thank you for joining us. Secondly, we hope you will share our work in all its forms, our cooking classes, my blog, my podcast, All Beings Considered. We hope you will keep checking in with Virtual Sanctuary. But I would like to leave you with this. We're in an upside down world right now, where we aren't able to see the people who are most important to us. It is the collection of our collective choices that have brought the world to where it is today. It's our behavior that's causing climate change. It's our acting as if we can do to other species what we will when we want to, with no consideration for the impact on them. And certainly look at what's happening to us. At Catskill Animal Sanctuary, we believe in leading with love, and we believe that people are kind and will change once they know the truth. Do a little research. Vegan living is wonderful. It is such an affirmation. It is healthy. It says to all living beings, you matter too. So we hope you'll follow us, friend us, like us, stay in touch, and I really look forward to seeing you on the next Virtual Sanctuary tour. Have a beautiful weekend, everybody.
I'm not going to let you off the hook. Oh, that's a terrible phrase. I'm sorry. I'm not going to let you go that soon, Kathy.
Okay.
Colleen says she didn't actually get to see the pigs. So do you want to give us a good view of someone? Maybe Mario and
Sure.
Audrey?
Let's see. All right. Well, who's
It's
winning?
nice and muddy. I think Mario and Audrey might be available.
Who?
Mario and Audrey.
Oh, they're right there? Mario. Audrey. Well, I don't know if they're, you guys, this is midday. This is when pigs like to nap. So I don't know if I can get them to come out. Mario?
Pig, pig. Audrey. Pig, pig.
Is this Scott and Regina? Okay, Scott and Regina are, hello pigs, pigs, are two pigs who were rescued as part of a rescue of 11 siblings, I think 4 years ago. Oh, and here comes Audrey.
Hello, pig, pig. What are you doing? Hi, pig.
And that's her friend Mario. And their story is just a wonderful story of a happy ending for 8 pigs at least. a pig farmer named Bob Comus faced, after some years of growing pigs to turn into food, faced what he was doing to these animals and decided to give up pig farming. You guys, let's hope this thing doesn't take a tumble because Mario is deciding it's his toy. Oh, Hayden, you got it?
Yeah, he's good.
Mario. So, Bob was unable to reconcile his. Don't eat my knee, please. Don't eat my knee. Was unable to reconcile growing pigs for food with who these animals were. He would say, I love my dog. I wouldn't eat my dog. So how can I consume these animals who are so much brighter, who are sensitive, who are hilarious? He made the decision to end his business, but then had to select which animals got to live because he was only able to find sanctuary for a total of 8 pigs. Mario and Audrey came to live with us, and the reason these two were selected is because she was the smartest pig, and he, over here, eating the padcaster, eating the equipment, was the kindest pig. So, oh, you guys, if only you could see what we're seeing. Mario, are you having fun?
I'm recording a little bit, so we'll have a blooper reel.
Oh, good. Oh, good.
Oh, pigs.
So the goats and the pigs, we know that this is going to be an issue with Caden is holding on to this padcaster as if it's their baby. Oh, no.
We're
Mario.
eating it. We're eating it.
So anyway, you guys, very happy ending for these pigs, but in the meantime, and many of you I'm sure are looking and are being moved and having all kinds of questions about the individuality of these animals, and we just encourage you to recognize that we had to learn to love the foods that we eat currently. Vegan food, as our chef Linda, the author of our wonderful cookbook, always says, it's just food. It's healthy, it's delicious, it's better for you, it's better for the environment, and we get 4 hooves up for from all these guys for that choice too. So, see you next time. Have a beautiful rest of the day. What happened? It's sunny out here. Hello, Peg. I love you.
And I'm just going to let Lauren do a quick wrap up for us.
Yes, so thank you all so much for checking us out today. Like Kathy was saying earlier, remember, follow us on social media, share everything with your friends. That was just not.
We still have a
sweetheart.
podcaster at the end of this.
I was told that the equipment we have here was built for high school students to use it. So, anyway. Oh, you guys are too much. But, yes. So, social media, check out the website. We're doing pre-orders for some of the shirts, which is very exciting. If you're interested in doing a private, group virtual tour, kind of like this, but just with your class, you can email me. I am at lauren@casanctuary.org. Check out our website as well, casanctuary.org/visit. Find the info on there. And keep in mind our text to donate option as well, which I think we'll get that up on the screen so you can see there. CAS to 91999. Really appreciate any support that you all can give to us in these very interesting times. So we will be back on Tuesday. I will be hanging out with some of the sheep. Who are going to be a little bit calmer than these guys have been. But we'll see you then. That'll be at 1 o'clock. And, just keep an eye on the YouTube page, and that'll be there. Thank you again so much. Enjoy your time. Stay safe.
Happy Saturday, everybody.
Happy Saturday.
Meh.
Goodbye, Mario. Thanks for visiting with us
Bye,
today.
good boy. I love you, pig.